Welcome to episode 181 of the Grip Strip Podcast, the repeat time edition of the Grip Strip Podcast. My name is Philip Matthew. I'm your host, and I'm back with my co-host, the computer genius, an iRacing Indy 500 champion, a gentleman, a scholar, and the number one Jacksonville Jaguars fan that I know. His name is Josh Fine. What's going on, brother?
Yeah, of course. I'm back. Back from vacation, so glad to be back on. Of course, a lot of things repeating. Repeat winner in Cup Series. I guess repeat winner coming back to the Cup Series this weekend, Shane Van Gisbergen. Kyle Kirkwood repeating as a winner this year. So in IndyCar. So yeah, a lot of things to get into. And yeah, definitely excited to be back on.
Yep, and thanks to Joe Passero for filling in. As always, being a good friend and being for even with all the technical crap that was going on for both of us, especially on his end, we were able to get the show out and do that last week in Josh's absence. But now the regular crew's back together. As Josh mentioned, Kyle Kirkwood gets his second win of 2023 on a street course as well after winning at Long Beach. Christopher Buescher getting 2 wins in a row, holding off to MTJ, and MTJ announces he's going to come back next year. Noah Gragson repeats being a moron and an imbecile, and actually is going to pay the price for it. It probably means, other than the fact he wrecks every week and his tailback, now karma's going to hit him in the face, and he won't have a cup ride next year. So we'll get into that. We talk about people who had repeats. There's a certain 7-time champion that had 5 in a row, and his crew chief in Jim Johnson and Chad Knaus, and both those guys were elected into the NASCAR Hall of Fame along with Donnie Allison. We'll go on talk about that and who maybe could have gotten in, not really in the modern ballot, but the secondary ballot. And we'll also talk about John Hunter, 5th win of 2023, even with the aggro that he has with his teammates, including Keebler Gibbs. That took place earlier in the race after he shit on his teammates, which basically was shitting on Connor Mozak at Road America for being Connor Mozak. And, Gustine was yelling at Connor Mozak on Friday at the ARCA race, so I guess it must be a thing for that guy to just be a battering ram, whatever car he's in. Get into SRX from Berlin last Thursday night, and that was Kyle Busch again, gets the victory, a little bit more compelling, I guess, this past week, and then it'll be on the dirt for the last 2 races of the season. Gonna have some interesting characters coming in for the next 2 weeks. We'll get into MotoGP, Moto2, IMSA, WRC, maybe Indy next. Anthony Wayne Stewart won a regional at Reading, so basically the closest drag strip there is to me these days, and so has the national points lead and the regional points lead in his division, so he has a chance of winning 2 championships in the alcohol dragster class. Of course, trying to win at Indy, which of course for Tony has never been easy. It took him a very long time to do it, so I know that he wants to win at IRP on Labor Day weekend, and that's really what counts the most in all drag racing. We'll get into some training camp and fantasy discussion since football is finally getting started. The preseason will start officially for all the other 30 teams here this week. And had a little New York Bretts or Aarons against the Browns? Yeah, the Browns last week. And some Dorian something or another won the game for Cleveland, so good for him. Everyone should go and pick him up in fantasy when Deshaun Watson gets suspended again for being an idiot too. We'll preview the IndyCar Gallagher Grand Prix, the second race at the IMS road course. Hopefully the last time they'll run 2 races at the IMS road course. And the Cup and XFinity will also race there. Hopefully that's the last time the XFinity Series races on the IMS and Cup races on the IMS road course. And they send the XFinity back to IRP with the trucks and bring back the Brickyard 400 the way it was, just in time for the 30-year anniversary next year. Big names going to be in that, including, as Josh mentioned, Shane Van Gisbergen making his second start in Cup, along with his title rival this year in the Supercars category, Brody Kostecki. He'll be making his Cup debut, along with former Formula One driver and World Endurance Champion and Le Mans winner, the guy who runs the Toyota Hypercar program. He's essentially the team principal or manager or whatever, is Kamuya Kobayashi, and he's going to be running a third 2311 car this weekend. So that's just insane right there, those 3 names. And then add former Formula One world champion Jenson Button back for his last run of 2023 in the 15 car. So that's just a little bit of flavor for the Pennzoil 200. 42 car field for Xfinity. Trucks will be starting their playoff here this weekend, Friday night at IRP. So we'll make our picks for who will get into the final 4. And of course, we'll make picks for the race and all, but we'll also make our predictions for who will get to Phoenix in 3 months' time, since their final race will be in 3 months. And then Josh will get into all things iRacing and gaming in the sim segment. We'll get on with the day, and we'll go on to next week. So let's start with IndyCar. Kyle Kirkwood utilized the strategy, kind of fell in favor of Kyle Kirkwood and Brian Herta. They called a good race, and even though there were probably other cars that had good pace, like Scott McLaughlin, like Alex Palou, Newgarden, etc. I mean, in the end, those 3 guys were the dominant figures. You had Grosjean led for a couple of laps there, but really it was Kyle Kirkwood and Scott McLaughlin, and McLaughlin started on pole, finished second in this race last year, and cautions and late race cautions, because it was the cleanest race at Nashville ever. 2 races prior has been carnage. This race, it took until almost the end of the race for anything to happen. There was only one actual yellow in the first 70 laps of the race, and that was a failure, fire and a rear wing failure on David Malukas' 18 car, and taking him out of after getting into the Firestone Fast 6. So brutal luck for him there. And but otherwise, very clean race, typical kind of IndyCar fare. You have your typical issues with Benjamin Peterson. You have your issues with Stingray Robb, but he actually finished in the top 20 and on the lead lap, no less. So that's better than usual for him. But and Linus Lundqvist ended up having the fastest lap, filling in for Simon Pagenaud in his IndyCar debut. He has a solid qualifying effort, but he gets into the Firestone Fast 12, didn't have soft tires to use in the Fast 12, so he didn't get to advance further. Was running well, probably could have gotten a top 10 finish, but had mechanical issues late, or had an issue. He hit the wall there, I think, but it says he had contact. He has 60 in turn 11. Yeah, that was basically the first mistake he made all weekend, and unfortunately came there late in the race, but he ran way better than that. I think that's a precursor of things to come. He will be in the car again this weekend for Simon Pagenaud. It's got all the feelings of Kurt Busch right now going on for Simon Pagenaud here this year, unfortunately. But while Linus Lundqvist, the defending Indy NXT champion, made his debut, a former Indy NXT champion, guy who's gone through the whole entire road of Indy. In his second full season in IndyCar, has I think established himself as someone that we're going to have to look at in the long haul. Second win of his career. Both of them have been on street courses. The Andretti Autosport team has had pace all year on street courses. Only twice they've closed, and he's been the guy that's closed the door. Kyle Kirkwood is bringing the heat, Josh, and holding off Scott McLaughlin, who's battling for a championship, and essentially holding off the top four guys in the championship in the process to go and win that race. I mean, he's not going to win the championship this year, of course, but at least he's establishing himself as somebody that we're going to have to look at as years go on here in the IndyCar Series.
Yeah, don't forget the heat, like Michael Andretti said in those Buttered Ball or whatever commercials with Ryan Hunter-Reay many years ago, and Kyle Kirkwood definitely didn't forget the heat this past weekend, of course. A bit of an interesting one here, of course, last couple of years, like you said, Nashville crash fest, but this year, fairly clean, and they actually ran at an earlier time, which I wonder if maybe that factored into it, the heat, in the top of the day, running in a slicker track and everything, and drivers having to be more careful and everything. But it was definitely from that perspective, only 4 yellows, really only 3 when you count the first one being the start waved off and everything. But this race definitely had a lot of ebb and flow in terms of strategy. We saw Kirkwood go on the alternates, and I think that's what helped him get to the front, go on alternates after his first pit stop, and pick up a lot of ground after starting in 8th. So, gets up there, gets up front. Palou goes on the 2-stop strategy, and then the final caution kind of saved him there in terms of being able to make it in on, save it on fuel. So didn't have to worry about those issues or anything like that. But, Kirkwood still pulls out the win. So Palou sees his street and road course. Well, he already did that, but still gets a podium. So even with all of that, Palou still finishes ahead of Joseph Newgarden there. As far as the championship goes, Palou scored 4 more points this week than Newgarden, so extended just a little bit over Newgarden. So still, I think Newgarden at his home race course, I guess, got to be a little bit disappointed that he didn't gain on Alex Palou this week, but I guess this is the best result there with Newgarden finishing right behind him there. But I think Kirkwood, now 2 wins, both on street courses. So maybe going forward, we have to look for him on street courses. Of course, was up there up front at the beginning of the year at St. Petersburg, another street course. So he's definitely got the talent and probably the best driver, right now, of course, in Andretti Autosport, and maybe superseding Colton Herta. Colton Herta was the guy a couple years ago. Remember the first race here at Nashville, had his issues and trying to win this race and didn't, and still hasn't really had anything since then. But Kirkwood now, 2 wins on the year. So, maybe next year we'll see if he's able to compete for the championship and be a guy that can compete and run top 5 in the title. So definitely think he's up there. Of course, I think we got to see a little bit more consistency out of Andretti as a team before we really put more weight into that prediction or theory. So definitely a interesting Grand Prix. Of course, with all that strategy happening, of course, and McLaughlin right there, of course. So his street course expertise right there as well. So definitely had very competitive car as well, starting on pole, but just didn't quite have the strategy gamble that Kirkwood had, and of course, he wasn't able to close in at the end, but still, great result for McLaughlin as well. So, this race, definitely was more of a strategy thing, and compared to what we saw the last couple of years, but definitely think I like this, and we'll say it's going to be different next year. I think with this course changing. Of course, they're changing layout of the course and some parts of it being kept and then other parts of it going away. Still going over the bridge and kind of looks like a music note in a way. So we'll see how that plays out, and kind of a weird pit road as well. So we'll see how this race comes out next year. If drivers are more aggressive because it's an easier layout with mostly 90-degree corners, left or right handers, and going over the bridge. We'll see how that takes place compared to what we've seen the last couple of years. So we'll see if it gets more wilder, or for better or worse, or we see end up things like this past race where it's a lot more calmer and a lot more straightforward, like you would expect.
Yeah, and with it being the season finale, there's gonna be a bit more urgency, I would assume, because you have a championship on the line. The IndyCar Series generally has their championship decided in the final race in some way, shape, or form. Unlike other methods of championships where they usually get decided before or are manufactured, like NASCAR. But for IndyCar, like Josh said, basically utilizing the bridge, both sides of the bridge, and then a parking lot, which will also house a weird pit road, and then Broadway, they're going to be going up. So that's going to be narrow. There's going to be a narrow part of the track is going up Broadway and through there. And so I'm not really sure. I mean, they're going to reduce the amount of passing zones for sure. It's not like there was that many passing zones to begin with. I think there's really been 2 passing zones there the whole time, which is on each end of the bridge there. So we'll see what happens with that. There's gonna be different level of urgency going there for the final race of the season. And I would assume that would be a perfect lead into football night in America. So that's probably what's going to end up happening. So they'll start the race a little later in the afternoon too, then starting at 12 noon Eastern time. Alex Palou leaves the race at Nashville with an 84-point lead on Joseph Newgarden, and then Newgarden has he has a 42-point lead on Scott Dixon. So big gaps there. And McLaughlin is 16 points. 16 points behind Dixon. And then there you have that's where it is at this point. The championship. I mean, the championship is right now essentially Alex Palou versus Joseph Newgarden. Dixon would need a miracle run here in these last 4 races to get number 7. Basically, you'd have to win all of them and hope like attrition comes down on Palou, which happened a couple of years ago to make it somewhat interesting. But in the end, Alex Palou ended up winning the championship. Newgarden has the gateway that you would venture to say not only is he the favorite, he's won every oval this year, but I think he's likely there. I mean, he's already the favorite, but it's like more than likely he's going to win it. So, but they have to go to the Indianapolis road course first. You have the Arrow McLaren team that has not won at all this year, which is crazy. You have guys like Christian Lundgaard, who has nothing to lose, and he's been really good at this course. And you have people that are just going to be gambling, and it's usually a very mellow, clean race because it's a very bland track. So its strategy was a deal at Nashville. We'll probably see that same kind of situation at Indianapolis on Saturday. So that's the points right there. McLaughlin is 4th, Ericsson 5th, O'Ward, Willpower, Lundgaard, Kirkwood, and Herta, the top 10. Alexander Rossi 9 points behind his former teammate there in 11th. Kyle Kirkwood, Scott McLaughlin, Alex Palou, Joseph Newgarden, Scott Dixon, the top 5 in the race on Sunday. Grosjean, Ericsson, O'Ward, Lundgaard, and Power, the top 10. I think that's Helio Castroneves' best finish since he won the Indy 500 a couple of years ago. I mean, I don't even know. He might have had one top 10, but it's hard to remember if he's had a top 10 since he made his return. He's not had much to show for it. The Meyer-Shank team actually had a little bit of pace, like I mentioned with Linus Lundqvist making the fast 12, and qualified Dixon because Dixon crashed in qualifying on Saturday, so that was a rare mistake for Dixon too. You look at the rookie battle, Marcus Armstrong gains more ground on Agustin Canapino, while Lundqvist probably stole a couple points there that he wouldn't have had because he ran as well as he did. So, we'll see what happens with that. So another repeat winner. Last week we talked about it with Christopher Buescher getting his third career Cup Series victory and his second on a short track. Well, now he has a fourth career victory, 2 wins in a row, 2 different types of racetracks, and the momentum is in RFK's court and in the 17 garage or in their box, because I think he's finishing the top 10 in every road course race since this car came along. He's won 2 races in a row, and Brad has had a chance to win more at Richmond than he did on Monday when they ran the majority of the race there. But Chris Buescher held off Martin Truex Jr. Didn't think that was going to be the case. The Toyotas, of course, were well out in front, had a lot of pace all weekend, but that aero issue, and of course now we're having the same problems that we had for God knows how many years about having you can't, once you get up to the front, you can't go and pass somebody. But it's Christopher Buescher gets the win there, leads 52 laps, which ended up being the most laps, and over Martin Truex Jr., won both stages, led the second most laps. Dennis Hamlin, Brad Keselowski, still looking for that victory at home. Kyle Larson gets a top 5 finish at a track where he's won most races he's won at one track in Michigan. Daniel Suarez finishes 6th, Ross Chastain 7th, so good run for Trackhouse. Suarez cuts into that gap, trying to get into the playoff. Kevin Harvick trying to get one last victory in Michigan, ran top 10, didn't really have the pace. Ryan Blaney 9th, and that Jones boy from Byron, Michigan, finished 10th. Keebler Gibbs was 11th. Cindric actually ran halfway decent. Christopher Bell crashed on Sunday, back there in the wall. They repaired the car, and he finished 13th. So credit to the 20 team, Adam Stevens, and that whole entire crew, because usually when you go and crash a car, you're not supposed to come back and be able to run, let alone run well enough to finish on the lead lap and then finish 13th. But I guess that car was really good. Corey LaJoie was getting into it with his buddy Ryan Blaney, actually got a top 15 out of it. Bubba Wallace had good stages, led 21 laps, but as per usual, the 2311 crew fucked up, and led to him finishing 18th. We got to go, and Tyler Reddick, he led. He had issues on pit road and then hit the fence. Ended up going and having to, I'm trying to see. He hit the fence, I think, because or he had some other problem, I guess. But there were people that were wrecking. I mean, Kyle Busch. Everybody talks about Kyle Busch having the greatest car controller, being able to do that, and he wrecked 14 laps into the race. I mean, there's been weeks like that for Kyle Busch this year, which is rare, but I think it's difference between what he was used to being in a Chevy and all that. But William Clyde Elliott the second, similar issue. Of course, he had a tire going down. Will Byron fencing it off of 4 and essentially putting himself in a hole to where he's not going to get the 15 bonus points for the regular season title now. Josh Berry filling in for Gagson. Rex, the 42 car, wasn't like it was going that fast to begin with. Alex Bowman was running well, looked like he had a chance, and then wreck on the back stretch, taking out both front row motorsports cars, and they're also the 14 car in the process. So I think, there's that, because they're all on that same lap. I'm going to work under the assumption that, the 45 was a part of that deal too. But either way, Chris Buescher gets the win, Josh. 2 wins in a row. All of a sudden, his playoff, he went from, we were pretty sure he was going to make the playoffs because they've been super consistent this year. But now, 2 wins, 11 playoff points, puts himself, once they do the reset, 3, 4, 5, he'll be in 6th as of the points right now. So, and giving himself a solid opportunity to at least advance 2 rounds in the playoff, which I think would be an amazing season for Chris Buescher and RFK in general.
Yeah, it's been a pretty amazing season so far for Chris Buescher and the RFK team. Look at where they were at just a couple of years ago and not really competitive at all. And then, here comes Brad Keselowski and making what, we thought would be kind of a, not necessarily a career ender move, but definitely would not have as many opportunities to win, as he did at Penske. But now Chris Buescher, after, many years of driving, really poor quality race cars now the last 2 years is, finally gotten into some really competitive rides with Roush rebuilding and everything. And now, going to make the playoffs, 2 wins in a row. So, it's definitely got a lot going for him, and could be a sneaky, like you said, could be a sneaky contender for the championship, especially with how they've been running this year. There's a road course on the playoff schedule. We have a couple road courses coming up. He's been pretty competitive there. Won at Bristol last year as well. So there's always that opportunity. And he's been pretty good on the 1.5 miles as well. So definitely good start to the year for Chris Buescher. And now, of course, getting second win, which I think that was a good battle there at the end of the race with Chris Buescher versus Martin Truex Jr. I think they both had really good cars. I think maybe Martin Truex was probably a little bit faster than Chris Buescher, but at the end of the race, Buescher was able to get out in front of Truex and then is able to break the draft on the front stretch and the back stretch, so that Truex couldn't draft up right alongside of him, and then is able to take his line away in the corners, or use the high line to stay with the momentum, force Truex to really have to drive in deep into the middles, 1 and 2, and of course turn 2. It's really hard to get off side by side there. Without a ton of speed. You usually lose speed off of that corner if you're on the inside lane compared to the high lane with the way it works there. So definitely a really intriguing battle there. Of course, no real passing went on, but at Michigan, it's always about being able to time for the right moment at these big tracks where you can make the move and try to stay in front. And Chris Buescher was able to use defensive driving, I guess, to stay up front and keep Truex from getting no more than a tenth of a second from him. So it was definitely a really interesting battle there at the end of the race, and definitely shows what Chris Buescher can do in a race car. And we all get to see what his talent looks like, and we kind of saw hints of it over the years, but being in bad equipment, I guess, with Roush the last couple of years, and then when he was at JTG, they weren't really competitive either. So definitely a good win there for Martin Truex. Of course, like you mentioned, returning for 2024, and maybe it'll be the last time he ends up in the Cup Series, but we'll see what happens there. So this race, like you said, interesting. Of course, didn't really get to catch too much of the ending there with it being on Monday, but for being a Monday race, it was pretty competitive overall. But some of the other guys in this results, Kyle Larson was up there for a bit, ended up in fifth. Bubba Wallace, of course, he was up there and had a pretty nice move after the stage 1 restart or stage 2 restart when they got back going, and led a handful of laps there, but then and I think he was in the top 10 for quite a bit, but then ends up fading at the end to 18th after their final pit stop. So really curious there's why they didn't make any position. Of course, I know track position is tough at Michigan, but the other guys that they pitted with, they like Larson and some of the other teams, they didn't get as much position back, so that's a little bit disappointing there. But they're still in good position for the playoffs, and I think big story here at the end, of course, Chase Elliott. Basically, it's all coming down to him getting a win now. So it's basically do or die the next 3 weeks. Watkins Glen, Indianapolis, and Daytona, all tracks that he's capable of winning at. So we'll see if he's able to win at any of those racetracks. But it's basically pointing his way in, basically out the door. It's all coming down to basically Daytona probably for Chase Elliott there to go out and win, or Watkins Glen. I don't think he's going to be as good at Indy. I think there's going to be too much competition there, especially with a bunch of ringers coming in at Indianapolis this weekend. So we'll see how Chase Elliott is able to bounce back from this crash that he had early on in the race. So yeah, I mean, competitive race overall, 26 lead changes, which I think is the most that they've had since 2012. So yeah, definitely a lot more passing happened in this race, compared to previous ones that we've seen in the past and past decade here at Michigan Speedway.
Yeah, and for Buescher, giving himself that space, I think will make it even easier for him to go out there for these next 2 weeks on the road courses and continue what he's been doing. And possibly you can look at Brad Keselowski. He's never been known as a road racer. He's never won a road race in the Cup Series, actually. Would be an interesting time to get one. Definitely would be more difficult to get it this weekend than it would, I would say, at Watkins Glen. But we'll see about that. I mean, Truex is feeling good, loving life. Kind of reminds me of when Mr. The King said, "I'll stop when I'm not having fun," and he promptly went and flipped down the short chute between turn 4 and the tri-oval at Daytona during the Daytona 500, and Mrs. The King comes into the hospital and says, "Are we having fun?" Well, that's what we'll see if Martin Truex is having fun next year, but he definitely is right now. Yeah, he wanted to win that race in Michigan, but I figure we'll see how that continues. Mentioned that Buescher would move up to 6th with the current, once they do the reset. Martin Truex has a 96-point lead on William Byron, and he has a 57-point lead on Denny Hamlin. So, I mean, nearly a full race with 3 races to go. So that's basically that's a lock, unless Martin Truex finishes dead last, which I have a hard time believing he will. 12 winners this year, so no more. There'll definitely be one person that makes it in on points. So right now, that person would be Kevin Harvick. He's got a 12-point lead on Brad Keselowski. Those 2 guys, I would venture to say, are pretty safe. Bubba Wallace has been gaining ground, though. Road courses are definitely not his strong suit. 2 road courses here coming up, but plus 58 above the cut line is a decent position to be in. Keebler Gibbs on the bump, plus 3 over Michael McDowell, and he's plus 5 over Daniel Suarez. AJ Allmendinger, 24 points behind. Bowman, minus 44. Cindric, minus 53. And Chase Elliott, minus 55. I would think that once you get past AJ Allmendinger, you're going to have to look at winning. And even if you're AJ, if you're not going to win one of these next two races, I have a hard time believing he's going to make it happen at Daytona. For the luck that he's had at times at Daytona, he's had some decent finishes there. But with that desperation and with it being Daytona and the likelihood of weather and all these other things, not really sure that Kaulig is going to put it together. They've had great Xfinity equipment at Daytona over the years, but it hasn't translated to the Cup Series as of yet. The Xfinity Series, we had the Cabo Wabo 250 at Michigan. They talk about pit road issues and wondering what might have been. Justin Allgaier's the one that's thinking that. John Hunter Nemechek got in argy-bargy with his teammates, but was able to recover and lead the most laps and win the race on Saturday. Josh Berry started on pole, okay amount of stage points. Buckshot Jones finished third, Keebler Gibbs fourth, Sam Mayer coming off of his first career win gets another top five. Riley Herbst finishes sixth. Chastain and the 10 car, Kligerman, Parker Retzlaff, and Jeb Burton. So good run for both Jordan Anderson cars and the two RCR cars right outside the top 10 in Austin Hill and Sheldon Creed. And Allgaier from second won the first stage, finished second in stage two, led 32 laps, ends up 14th. Cole Custer 16th. Chandler Smith had a good first stage and then dropped. I think he hit the wall there at some point. He had a tire issue. Kind of sounds like something that would happen there. I'm trying to look through here the incidents. He must have, or speeding probably. Yeah, so I think that was the one. There was one incident. I mean, the incident that took out Sammy Smith was the one with all three Gibbs cars. Keebler Gibbs and John Hunter were getting into it, yelling at each other, saying all kinds of effed up stuff. And that's why he gets you. Connor Mozak didn't hit anybody personally, but he hit the wall. Carson Hocevar was, I think he was collateral damage from the Mason Maggio, he was a collateral damage in that wreck with Mason Maggio, who then had a tire fail and hit the fence. Stephen Parsons just drove around at about 20 miles an hour slower than everybody else the whole entire day. Sage Karam was driving for, Carl Long, actually only finished a lap down, so hopefully that's something that they are able to connect and get some money together and run, because that would be a good combination, good experienced group there with a guy who's trying to get into stock car racing. But John Hunter Nemechek is somebody who is established, probably going to be in a cup car again next year, and 5 wins as of now. Still a good amount of time to go in the regular season, Josh, but that regular season points battle for those playoff or those 15 bonus points, it's going to come down to the wire for sure between him and Austin Hill. It seems like every week they just play hot potato with that points lead. But it's really based on those two guys, and we're waiting to see who else is going to establish themselves as a factor in the Xfinity Series, because otherwise it doesn't seem, there's guys that have won, but it doesn't seem like there's anybody that's really that next person. I'm not sure if you think there is anybody out there. There might be, but you have to close to really prove that, I would think.
Yeah, I mean, I think with John Hunter Nemechek, Austin Hill, both being the two drivers in the series that's really been dominant, I don't really think there's really any room for anybody else. I mean, you could say Justin Allgaier, he's still mathematically there, but he's been too inconsistent. Hasn't had enough wins yet to really say that he could be up there. Only one win on the year, when he probably has had at least a couple of wins that were left on the table. So definitely not a strong contender there compared to Hill and Nemechek. So yeah, I think it's going to come down to probably the last race or a handful of them. We still have plenty of tracks that fit both of them well. I think maybe you give John Hunter the nod on the mile and a half. So overall, I think maybe they're a little bit stronger than Austin Hill, but Austin Hill is still pretty competitive on the super speedways. We still have Daytona left, which he's obviously been good at in the past. So I think if you look at it like that, there's still opportunities for both of them to come out and potentially win with everything. And the last one's at Kansas. So I think both of them pretty good. Beginning of the year, with Austin Hill won at Las Vegas, which is somewhat similar to Kansas. Of course, but John Hunter, like I said earlier, just really strong in the mile and a half tracks. Darlington's going to be interesting. That might be one there. Of course, John Hunter Nemechek final lap with Kyle Larson back in May, where they were fighting for the win, and John Hunter ends up spinning out and crashing. So we'll see if that one comes back to bite them there, and if he's able to make it up. So there's still a lot of time for both of these guys. And of course, the road courses, not really. I think John Hunter has been not as good on the road courses as Austin Hill. So yeah, it might be in Austin Hill's favor here if he does well at Indianapolis and Watkins Glen. So we'll see how that goes. But this race, of course, John Hunter, of course, early in the race, was involved in an accident early on, and ends up coming back and ends up leading the most laps in the race and winning. So tells you how good of a car he really had in this event to be able to recover from early accident and everything. But of course, Josh Berry had a lot of speed, but ends up finishing second. So solid result there. Still winless on the year for him. So definitely not as strong of a contender for the championship right now. So we'll see if he's able to pick one up here before the end. But really hard to say that he's in that group of drivers that can compete for the championship. So I think right now the top four as it is, John Hunter, Austin Hill, Allgaier, and Custer, I think are probably the guys that are your best bets, I guess, to win the championship. Of course, but I think the regular season title on the line, Austin Hill, John Hunter still have a chance at it, so that should be competitive. Kind of almost like a couple years ago, remember, with Austin Cindric and AJ Allmendinger. At first it looked like Austin Cindric was going to wrap up the title, which right now looked like John Hunter for a while looked like he was going to be the guy, and now Austin Hill is kind of closed in that gap. So Austin Hill's maybe that AJ Allmendinger from a few years ago that took it down to the wire. So we'll see if they have a similar fight like those two drivers did, and certainly will make it very entertaining. And I think it'll provide a lot of storyline for the Xfinity Series, which of course it needs to be able to get viewers and everything. So we'll see how that ends up going.
Yeah, and I think Briscoe was also a part of that deal in 2020, and he won a lot of races, but he wasn't as consistent later in the summer.
Right.
Allmendinger picked it up, and then those three guys battled for a good part of the season. Those are the three big names. So can Allgaier insert himself as that third big name? He's already up there points-wise. They need to execute. JRM has not been great with closing. It kind of is like Andretti Autosport and IndyCar. A lot of pace, been showing speed, but they haven't won when they haven't closed. And Buckshot Jones needs a win to make the playoffs, so he's in trouble, and he's not known as a big-time winner anyway. He has won races, but there's going to be a lot of movement. He's part of the likely movement in the Xfinity Series for next year. Is it going to be based on the fact that he missed the playoffs or not? To be determined. Right now, you have 8 winners. Barry's plus 126. You have, I'm trying to see how many races to go in the regular season. They have the most races left before their playoff starts. So they got 5 races to go. before they start their playoff. They'll have 2 road courses, Daytona, Darlington, and Kansas. So it's really, you really have 4 toss-ups in terms of for the regulars. And then you have in going on, because Darlington is tough. It's a short race, but it's very tough. And Kansas Speedway is one where you can kind of look back at some of the results earlier in the year, and it's usually a Toyota benefit there. So we'll see what happens with that. And Barry's plus 126. I think for all intents and purposes, he'll be all right. Hamrick, not really done much of anything all year, but he's plus 67. Unless you see the likes of Kligerman Creed already is in the top 12. He's plus 18 over Kligerman. Buckshot Jones, some other person that isn't listed winning. I have a very hard time believing there's going to be a lot of movement here in terms of the points, because they just haven't run good enough. Like where these guys are in points, it's basically what they are. Herbst had a great start to the year, and then he fell back. Of course, we had the crew chief change a few weeks ago. It's Riley Herbst. Does it really matter? Sheldon Creed, it hasn't worked in the Xfinity series for whatever reason compared to what it has in a truck or in an ARCA car. Probably because there's more horsepower, which I don't understand. I would think that would be more to his favor, and the low downforce. But I think the low downforce and being a little looser, as he's still trying to figure it out. But we'll see what happens. I'm assuming he's gonna have another year in Xfinity, because he'll be the lead dog next year, because Austin Hill's gonna be moving up the Cup. But we'll get into that. So let's get into, speaking of somebody who moved up the Cup, but might end up moving back. We had the news on Saturday of Noah Gragson getting indefinitely suspended for his social media presence, which, to be fair, he has a history. This is going back to when he was running late models, going back to running K&N, where he's done questionable things, said questionable things, done questionable stuff. He had the incident at Pocono where he had to pull out of the race the day of with an illness. Notice I went with air quotes on that one, because that's the same way as like Dustin Johnson and the PGA Tour they gave him a test and then he took time away. And there's like the double secret probation, which is, you got caught. So you got caught with something or doing something. So that happened. Then, of course, he drove for Junebug for I don't know how many years, stunk up the joint for how many years, wrecked a lot of race cars, was a douche, got into more fights than he had wins. Then he had last year where he won a trillion races, and he had the whole aggro with Keebler Gibbs. Of course, didn't close the deal at Phoenix, but he had earned a shot, and because Legacy needed a driver, because they had Ty Dillon, so you could basically put a potted plant in that car and would run better than Ty Dillon. And that's essentially what Noah Gragson has been, except this potted plant hits the wall every week. He's missed a race because of a concussion after Gateway. He's wrecked a lot. He was the worst regular on the circuit. And, I don't think it's worth referencing why. I just will go and say this is par for the course. I've been saying that for days. It's par for the course for the guy. And the people that are up in arms about it and making their comments, it's why NASCAR has a problem, fundamental problem in society, to have a fan base and have reach. When there's defense of this, they shouldn't suspend them. It's not that. It's like, you understand that it's not even about this. Like, really, at the end of the day, this is the most recent example of Noah Gregson's general lack of awareness, being a moron, not be like, how the hell are you? He's a trust fund baby. His dad's a fucking drunk who killed people and he's in jail. You got freaking, I don't know where the hell the mom is. He's had questionable behavior on women. He's made questionable comments about I don't know how many different things. He's a tool, absolute tool. I'm pretty sure he's more likely to hang out with certain segments of the society, certain people. But at the end of the day, the guy, if you want to go and just base it on driving, the guy's run terrible. So what the hell difference does it make if you suspend him? Are you going to go and say that, oh, this is an easy out? Yeah, probably is. But the reality of the world is they brought it up on NASCAR radio earlier today. When they made the announcement to go to Toyota, they were happy to bring back Eric Jones and Noah Gragson because they both drove for Toyota. Of course, Eric Jones was brought up through the Toyota program and then got hung out to dry by Gibbs because that's what they do. Gragson left to go to JRM. But now, you know, I mean, I don't know what you think, Josh, about it. It's karma getting to Gragson. I don't think he'll ever learn. It doesn't really matter to him because I don't think he cares about, like, he really doesn't care about being a winner, being somebody who's going to be a champion and a representation in the sport. He just wants to be like a social media presence. Like, to me, he has like Miss Hummer vibes, except he can actually drive when he decides to. But on the other hand, he's a really inconsistent, obnoxious dipshit who wrecks a lot. And when you're already running bad and then you're crashing cars every week, you're going to have a short leash anyway. I mean, John Hunter Nemechek, people don't, you'll take it or leave it with him. He's kind of a iffy guy. You know, he's kind of two-faced, but then that's a Toyota characteristic, I think. But then he ran for front row, wrecked like half the races, and he quit before the end of the season. So, like, and he went to trucks, now in Xfinity, and he's likely the guy that's going to take over for him in the 42 car next year. But what are your thoughts on Gragson and what the aftermath has been? He still hasn't been fired by Legacy. Jordan Bianchi said he was, but Bob Pockris said he wasn't. So he's suspended. He's not going to race the next 2 weeks. Mike Rockenfeller is going to race the next 2 weeks, but we'll see what happens after that at Daytona.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to take away from that one, obviously. First of all, let's look at the driving, and yeah, he's 33rd in points before last Sunday's event. Had an average finish of, I think, 28th. So, yeah, doing really poorly overall this year. Of course, I will say that Legacy Motor Club hasn't really, I mean, we've been on the record saying that they've basically been out to lunch this year, and you know, Eric Jones isn't, we thought Eric Jones would be a lot better this year and that team would be pretty decent, and Eric Jones is 28th in points, so he's not too far ahead of his teammate there in terms of the standings, and so they're not really lighting the world on fire as performance wise, and rookie season, of course, and I will also say that most of the Xfinity drivers since 2021 that have come up into the Cup Series this year and last year with the next gen car haven't really performed all that well. Look at Harrison Burton, basically performed the same, and he's still with the 21 car, and people talk about him how bad he is every week, and there's no way that he can continue next year with the 21. Ty Gibbs, has performed better than most of them, of course, so he's also in a really good ride. And last year, when he filled in for Kurt Busch, he wasn't really doing that well either. So, kind of shows you that the next gen car has been tough to acclimate to for the new guys that are coming up from the Xfinity series and everything. So, there are exceptions there, but for the most part, it's been a struggle, and it's been with the worst team and everything. So, and he's, from a performance standpoint, not that great, or pretty terrible. So, from that standpoint, and then, I'm pretty sure I thought I saw something about them, like, starting to lean towards looking at John Hunter Nemechek in the last couple of weeks or something like that. And when you look at how John Hunter has been performing in Xfinity and how Noah's been performing in Cup, well, it's pretty easy to make that decision to go towards John Hunter, and that's probably what it is. Just using the easiest opportunity to get him out of the car and prepare the way for John Hunter Nemechek to go on next year, or maybe even later on this year as a trial. We'll see. We'll see after the next 2 weeks who they decide to put in, and of course we still have no idea if they're firing him after all and everything. And so when you look at it from that standpoint, yeah, it's not surprising from wanting to get him out of the car. And for the other part is for what he actually did. I mean, that's probably like on levels of seriousness. I mean, let's be real here. That's on the lowest. I mean, merely like hitting the like button on a potentially racist meme, or well, yeah, it is a racist meme. So hitting the like button there, I mean, could have been passively. I mean, scrolling through things, you may hit something accidentally, but still there. So, that's not really, I mean, on the level of like horrible things that you could do, that's probably like on the lowest thing. And I saw one person say that that's probably not even the worst thing he's ever done when you look at things that he's done in the past that, were bad. So, I think a lot of people didn't expect that he'd actually be suspended. I mean, first by his own team, so they took action first before NASCAR even knew about it. So I guess credit to Jimmy Johnson for taking advantage of that. But, I mean, the levels of seriousness, what he actually did, I mean, honestly, it's pretty harmless, but shows that, you have to be consciously aware of your actions, I guess. So that's, I mean, it's not good and everything. And I mean, on the other hand, look at Kyle Larson drop the freaking N-bomb on iRacing and still in the Cup Series. So, we won't get more into that, but he's still in the Cup Series and everything. So, got back into the Cup Series, and of course, he's made his, forgiveness, and he's done things to try and right himself there. So we'll see if Noah's done or will need to do the same thing to get back into the Cup Series. But I saw some fans that were on, I was looking through the comments and everything, some fans that were black that said that he when they interacted with him in person, he was the nicest person that they had met there, and they were generally positive, and they said that they know that, or they hope that they could learn from this and be able to move on and stuff. So I saw that was pretty interesting comment from there, and I'm trying to think, somebody said that, well, one of his sponsors probably didn't care about that, and that's not true, because Black Rifle denounced far right people a couple of years ago in an interview with the New York Times. So when people talk about that company, I find that interesting because they denounced them a couple of years ago, anyways. And then of course the other part of it, I don't really like when people go out and find stuff to look for things to potentially take them down on. And I mean, this it'd be one thing if they found him doing it act like if he was in a video or something where he was doing something really bad like that, then that'd be another thing. But it's I think if I had seen that, I probably wouldn't even care, to be honest. So whatever. But finding something like that and then pushing it up and stuff, and I think the person that found it is kind of notorious for trying to find stuff to get people on, and then trying to start up something. And I mean, clearly that that's what ended up happening. Of course, I mean, it's pretty dumb. Don't get me wrong. Again, be consciously aware of what you're doing and know that there are consequences to your actions, whether good or bad. So, I don't really like general when people find stuff and to try and get you and potentially cause a negative thing or impact. But I mean, I guess for what he did, it was warranted because companies don't want to be associated with that, even if that's the lowest thing on the totem pole there. So yeah, I mean, that's my take. I mean, I try to have a really nuanced take on these things. I don't think it's cut and dry. I don't think it's black or white. I think there's a lot of nuance that goes into this. So that's how I think about that. But I think he'll learn from it. Maybe he'll go back to Xfinity next year. I mean, there's a possibility of Brandon Jones going back to Joe Gibbs, and maybe Noah, maybe Dale will take him back in. I guess I don't know if that would happen, but I mean, it could, or maybe he goes to another team that he has associations with. Of course, colleague. He has association with them driving in the Cup Series for them last year, so maybe he takes over or has an opportunity to go and ride in Xfinity and try to reprove himself and rebuild, or maybe go back to trucks. We'll see. So, but probably in the near future, Cup Series definitely on hold for now. We'll see if Legacy decides to, if they actually decide to bring him back, and if he completes his sensitivity training or whatever it is, and try to get him back, but kind of doubt it at this point, especially after they flip flop and everything on whether he's out or not. So hard to tell right now. So we'll have to wait and see what they actually do. But we'll see what his future is. But I guess it's a learning opportunity for everybody.
Yeah, it definitely is a learning opportunity. You have to be aware of what you're doing, especially when you're in the Cup Series. I don't think when you're in one of NASCAR's 3 major series, or even ARCA, which is not even, single A or like rookie ball or whatever you want to call it. I give you credit, Josh, on your take, of course. Very reasoned and going into detail, of course, which is part of why you're the balance, of course, for us. And so I'm just going to go and rant. But my rant comes from his history and knowing these things, and also seeing what we've saw over the last few days. And the fact of the matter is, he's never going to learn. I don't think he's ever going to change. So but what's also going to be apparent, like Connor Mosaks of the world and some of these other dipshits, is because he has the ability to bring a check. You can go and get a ride again, and definitely can get a ride in a truck. I mean, you're basically any Tom, Dick, or Jane could get a truck or an ARCA ride, as long as you have about a few $100,000 at this point. I mean, if Tim Vines can run a rent-a-wreck in the truck series, then basically if you can get a little bit of money together, you could probably make a damn truck show. You'll finish in the top 10 in an ARCA race too. But he'll probably go back to Xfinity. He'll be in a Kaulig car, or he'll either be in a Kaulig car or RCR or one of them big time teams. So in the end, is he really losing? They'll say, well, Legacy was a terrible car, which, yeah, they've been terrible. And Jimmy Johnson, it's the first year with him as a car owner, and him and Maury Gallagher are trying to basically right a ship that's been going nowhere for decades, which was Petty Enterprises or whatever. I mean, it isn't Petty Enterprises. It was like Evernham's team that became Richard Petty Motorsports, or Gillette. I mean, like, it's going multiple different ways, but Jimmy Johnson carries himself in a certain way. I think that plays a part in it. I also look at Maury Gallagher and kind of knowing, I'm sure he knows Noah, because I think Spencer and Gallagher, his son, and Noah aren't that far apart in age. So, and his son was not the sharpest knife in the drawer either for a while, and did plenty of stupid shit, and got himself in bad spots many times. And he's like, okay, my son did this crap, and now I see the second coming. And he wrecked race cars constantly, and he was just a waste of a seat and all. He eventually figured it out, and he won races here and there, but he wasn't elite, and he wasn't going to end up going anywhere. So Maury said, you're coming home and you're going to be a part of the business. You ain't going to race no more. And in this case, he's like, you're not going to keep on wrecking my race cars. And then on top of it, being an ignoramus, if you want to be an idiot stick, you can go and drive for somebody else. And there's plenty of people who employ him because he can bring a check. So more power to him. We'll see what happens with Gagson. The NASCAR Hall of Fame was the other piece we were going to get into prior to moving into the roundup. I mean, there was a bit of anger that there wasn't a unanimous selection of Jimmy Johnson, but you can basically, there's not been any unanimous selections, whether it was Mr. the King, Dale Earnhardt, or, Jeff Gordon, Smoke. I mean, you list the names, Bobby Allison, David Pearson, Durwood. None of them were elected unanimous. So the fact that Jimmy Johnson isn't shock. It seems kind of weak, but it's kind of what it is with these writers. And I say this as someone who used to be in the industry, albeit not to the level that some of these journalists are. Like Josh talked about, referencing the first person who kind of caught wind of this, kind of being a gotcha reporter, the fact that there are people in this business that are there to be a gotcha reporter. Pockrass was one of them for a while and then kind of turned it around. Jeff Gluck was and kind of has always been, but he doesn't have much of a platform anymore. Jenna Fryer is, and that's why you barely ever hear from her, and she blocks everybody. There are other ones, and people who steal shit like that fat tub of shit, what's his name, Chris something or another, who steals stories in the lunch line. But the fact is, you have that option and opportunity to vote, and you've got that privilege. Thought and logic would say you're going to vote for Jimmy Johnson. The guy's won 7 championships and 83 races. I mean, he's won every big race multiple times. I mean, really? But it would have been an interesting thing to see that. It would have been cool to at least add that to the mix. Like, oh, he was the first unanimous selection. It's been an interesting year for Jimmy, becoming an owner, driving Garage 56 car at Le Mans, all these different things going on. And to give props to Jimmy Johnson for what he did. Because during that time, it's like you think about Fish Lips, what he's doing in F1, or what other guys have done. That's what Jimmy was doing. For 5 years, he did that in NASCAR with a playoff format. But they didn't. Not shocked by it, but the fact is he got in, and so did Chad Knaus. Everybody and their mother, when we saw what the ballot was going to be, I think everybody was going to go and pick those two. Chad was kind of worried he wasn't going to get in, which is funny, but I think they weren't going to go and leave one out, put one in and not the other. The fan vote, the fan vote went the same way. Basically, the fan vote was the way the actual vote went for Jimmy and Chad, and then Donnie Allison ends up getting in for the Pioneer ballot. I voted for Sam Ard personally because of his greatness in the late model sportsman and then the Busch Series. His career was ended early due to a massive accident at Rockingham after winning a championship, or else he could have won even more. And he still, for however many years was dealing with after effects of that wreck, similar to what happened to Bobby Allison at Pocono with his career-ending crash. So, it's interesting how that connection was there. Donnie Allison getting in, there's 4 of the 5, it makes sense. AJ Foyt's AJ Foyt, but you don't associate AJ Foyt with NASCAR. You associate AJ Foyt with IndyCars and open wheels and even sports cars for that matter before NASCAR, even though he won the Daytona 500, even though he won a good amount of races, almost ate it in a cup car at Riverside. If it weren't for Vernelli saving him there. The modern era, Jimmy and Chad, I always put in for Larry Phillips, I think, because he's a guy who won multiple Winston Racing Series championships and was a legend for so long. it's the NASCAR Hall of Fame. It's not the NASCAR Cup Hall of Fame. You ought to go and teach people about those things. I mean, granted, most of the attention span of most of the idiots that seem to follow the sport is not very long. But to me, as a longtime fan, I think they should be going towards that, putting that energy there. But, it's going to be hard for Larry Phillips of the world. I mean, Harry Hyde and Tim. My thing is Harry Hyde and Tim Brewer. I mean, Brewer alone, I just want Brewer to get elected just to hear his speech. Because Tim Brewer is one of the funniest people, and he has no filter. And he had to deal with Darrell. So he dealt with Junior Johnson and Darrell Waltrip. And he worked with many other legendary drivers. So that in itself, if Brewer gets in, then at least Hammond gets in, which both of those guys will finally spill on Darrell and say how much of a pain in the ass he was. That would be funny to me. But I mean, I don't think you were surprised with the Jimmy and Chad choices. The Landmark Award, I'm not surprised that Janet Guthrie got that. I think it's great because she was the first woman to ever run Coca-Cola 600 and in a super speedway. Yeah, she was the first woman to run a super speedway cup race, because other women had run in NASCAR's top division. Louise Smith and others had run in short track races. And then she was the first woman to run both the Daytona 500 and the Indy 500. And I mean, people choose to forget whatever her results were, since people apologize for Miss Hummer's results forever. She wasn't anywhere near as good of equipment as Miss Hummer ever had, and she was able to get decent runs in a time where being able to finish was basically a win for a lot of people. And her path could have been to go to NASA, because she was an aerospace engineer, and she had a chance, honestly had a chance during the time of Apollo, the missions, to go and do that. So she could have been we would have never known, but she decided to go with racing, for what a lot of the old school people want to say one way or the other. She was a racer. She ran SCCA. She won championships in SCCA amateur ranks, and she came up and she ran Indy through all the sexism and all that. She ran the 600 through all the sexism and all that. Got to give her credit for that. So, at least for Donnie Allison, he's here. It'll be a great thing. Another member of the Alabama gang gets into the Hall of Fame. So we're essentially waiting on, I think Neil Bonnet's the only one that's left of the guys that you theoretically, that are in the Alabama gang that could get in. But Jimmy and Chad getting in together, so that'll be an interesting, great thing in January when those two guys are up there on stage shooting the breeze about the old days, which weren't really all that old for us, but it's crazy to think that they stopped working together in 2017. 2018 was their last year, and then that's right. And then Jimmy ended up getting what's his face, who's now basically the 5 team is what the 48 car was. So he had that whole crew for a couple of years, and then Jimmy or Chad went with
he went with William Byron for a year.
For a year or two, and then that was before Rudy Fugle came in, I think last year. Yeah, so. Yeah,
competition director now. Yeah, personally, I'm not, they getting in first ballot, that's not surprising. I think, a lot of people were up in arms whether they should have been, at least Jimmy should have been unanimous. And, I think 93%, only 4 people that didn't vote for Jimmy on this ballot. And I kind of agree with that. And I think the reason why is because he competed under different point systems that were, designed, especially the Championship 4 system designed to create excitement, whereas, the old system was, the entire season. And I think Jimmy, if you compare Jimmy and Johnson to Richard Petty and Dale Earnhardt, I think maybe you can give him over Richard Petty because Petty's wins are probably inflated because he competed weeknights when most of the field wasn't, and he had manufacturer support when a lot of teams didn't and everything. But I don't know if you compare him against Dale. I think I might take Dale Earnhardt every time there, but especially Dale Earnhardt when he was dominant and everything. But Jimmy did what he did. They did what they needed to do to win in the chase in the playoffs. But I think statistically, Dale Earnhardt was a more dominant driver if you look at how the stats were. And I think Jimmy Johnson was able to use the chase to go out and win championships and everything. And I think that benefited him. But even if you look at Jimmy Johnson's last season in Cup, or not last season Cup, but his last championship season in Cup, statistically, it's pretty weak. So, I think when you look at it like that, I think he had, of all his championships, I think 2016 was the worst in terms of top 10s, top 5s, and average finish and everything. So, even though he won 5 races, so, it definitely was the worst performing one. So, and the only reason why is because he won Homestead. Otherwise, we would be talking about probably Kevin Harvick. I think that would have been a champion if they, kept it under the same format as far as no playoffs. But I think I agree with him getting in first ballot. I just don't see. I think at least there has to be some people that don't vote for him unanimously, because I think it's just too much too much differences between the system to say that he gets voted in unanimously over Richard Petty and Dale Earnhardt.
Yeah, and I get what you're saying. If none of them, if Richard Petty, Dale Earnhardt, Bobby Allison, Cale Yarborough, David Pearson, Durwood, Jeffy, if none of them got in unanimous, then Jimmy wouldn't. And at this point, that's really what we have now. It's like, oh man, you didn't get elected, and you know what? For the 4 douches that didn't want to vote for him, good. It doesn't matter because they don't want to list it. I think it would be funnier for these people who don't want to vote. Like, you have the ability to vote, you don't bother to vote, or to come out, just own it. I'd have more respect for them and explain it. That's if you want to be, you have that privilege, and explain it. Then I could have more respect for the process, because there's plenty of people in this that know the sport, that respect the sport, that have been around it. I would let Dale Jr. vote for it. I would have him have a vote. The guy is literally one of the only reasons why we care about the history of the sport anymore, period. Let him vote. The dude knows this crap. For all the damn concussions, if a fucker goes back in history, looks up all this stuff, and it's funny when they bring up conversations with his friends and they come on the show and he's like, I don't remember any of that, but he can remember who won the 1990 race at whatever in the Busch series. But hey, that's Junior for you. But I think we'll see what happens. It's going to be harder for some of these drivers and crew chiefs and whoever that haven't gotten in to get in. I'm not sure who they're going to add next year for the next ballot, but the fact is now that Jimmy got in, I don't really know who would come along after that. I guess Carl Edwards, I don't know.
Matt Kenseth.
Didn't Matt Kenseth? I thought Matt Kenseth just got voted in.
Oh, yeah, that's true. I forgot.
He got voted in last year. I was thinking exactly Matt Kenseth, but then I'm like, Kenseth went the same year he did, and he didn't retire, but he did retire, but he's not retired, but he got in. So, yes, I don't really know who's going to be in. So now it's going to be interesting who they pick for the next ballot for the 2025 election there. I wonder what's going to happen with that. Okay, let's get to the roundup here. SRX, I mentioned, was at Berlin. Kyle Busch gets the victory for a second week in a row. In what was that? I heard a beep. So my headphones went out. Okay, so the SRX ended up. We'll go over and see the results. Blowski by just under second. Ryan Newman third. Marco Andretti fourth. Haley Deegan actually got a top 5. Schrader, Smoke, Alio, Labani, Harvick, Candy Cane making his first appearance in the SRX, and John Benson Jr. In being the local hero ends up finishing last. The points for the 7 regulars, as it stands right now, Ryan Newman, 33-point lead over Brad Keselowski, 34 on Marco, and 51 on Tony Stewart, and 53 on Kenny Schrader, 54 on Haley Deegan and Bobby Labonte. So I'm not, in terms of the points, I'm not really sure how that's going to work for those guys. I mean, that's basically it's I think Brad Keselowski is the one person I think in no-neck, and he's not really known for his dirt prowess. So, I mean, it's a battle for those three. Those 3 guys, Marco's trying to get 2 in a row, but I think Newman is definitely in the driver's seat to go and get the SRX title, make 3 different champions in 3 seasons. This weekend's race this Thursday's race at Eldora will have I'm trying to go through here. Their website is, Jonathan Davenport will be at Lucas Oil Raceway in Wheatland, I think Missouri or whatever. And then, Johnny Benson Jr. saw. They suspend good. Ryan Preece is over there. This is not great. Chase Briscoe will be in the field at Eldora, along with Bald Spot, Dylan. I have to go on the X machine and go on there because I think they posted it on their SRX racing. And so the entry list, so Marco, Deegan, Keselowski, Matt Kenseth in the number 8, going back to his old modified or late model number. Smoke, Bobby Labonte, Ron Capps, the multi-time funny car champion, has run USAC midgets and stuff on dirt. Austin Dillon running a number 33, has won at Eldora before. No-neck, Schrader, Chase Briscoe running number 57, and which is a combination of his number along with his dad, and then Marissa's favorite number is 7 or something, so they did 57 because of course he can't run 14, but he'll get to run against his hero and his boss. And then Antoine Canan in the number 66, so good strong lineup there. It'll be 12 again this week. Davenport will be a part of the race next week, which I'm sure he wants to put up a better showing than he had when he was in the 16 car last year at the Bristol Dirt, the multi-time Lucas Oil late model champion, World of Outlaw late model champion there. And MotoGP, Moto2 were at Silverstone last week. A rare, good performance for, MotoGP, because the new website is absolutely atrocious. But, so there you go. Moto2, I said results and standings. Yeah, so there you go. In the MotoGP, Alicia Spargaro gets his first win of the year, second of his career. And for Aprilia in a close battle with Pecco Bagnaia, Brad Binder finishes third. Aprilia's get 3 of the top 5 with Miguel Oliveira and Maverick Vinales. Jorge Martin, Luca Marini, Jack Miller, Johan Zarco, and Raul Fernandez round out the top 10. So a good day for Aprilia. The Hondas of Marc Marquez and Joan Mir, the factory duo, crashed out or fell out. Enea Bastianini's nightmare season as a teammate to Pecco Bagnaia continues. And Marco Bezzecchi, who's been in the points battle, crashes out 5 laps into the race, so loses out in terms of the points right now. You go into the standings in MotoGP. Pecco Bagnaia, 41-point lead on Jorge Martin, and a further 48 points on Marco Bezzecchi. That's the battle right now. I mean, more than half the season left for them guys, so still time. Pecco Bagnaia had a huge gap to come back from last year and was able to do it, so we'll see what happens with that. Brad Binder, best non-Ducati, in fourth for the top five are Ducatis. Then you have Alicia Spargaro tied with Luca Marini. And so Monster Energy, Yamaha, the best Japanese bike is Fabio Quartararo, only 6 points ahead of his teammate who got canned. And Alex Rins is going to take over for Franco Morbidelli next year on the factory Yamaha. So we'll see how that works out for him. I'm sure he'd hope for it to be better than what has been this year. Felipe Aldeguer gets the win in Moto2 over Aaron Canet, Pedro Acosta, the podium. Joe Roberts gets a fourth place finish. Best run of the season for him. Sam Lowes in a home game finishes seventh. And so that's about it there. And not finish. So the Rory Skinner, the teammate of Joe Roberts, gets taken out. Jake Dixon was looking for a great run at home, but gets taken out in the first lap. Sean Dillon Kelly was injured, so he didn't race this past weekend at the British Grand Prix. So the standings going into the next round will sees Pedro Acosta up by 2 points over Tony Arbolino. And it's 52 points on Jake Dixon. So basically it's the Acosta Arbolino who's going to decide who wins that championship there. IMSA at Road America saw the Porsche Penske team end up with a victory there. And they did breaks through, so first GTP win of the season with Felipe Nasr and Matt Campbell. They've been close earlier in the year. I think they were definitely up there at the 12 hours of Sebring, and they got into that wreck, which helped the 31 team get that victory. They won by 4.6 seconds over the 60 Meyer-Shank team of Tom Blomqvist and Colin Brown. Acura's take two of the podium spots there. Ricky Taylor, Philippe Albuquerque rounds out the podium. Cadillac, Ganassi, Bourdais, and Renger van de Zande. And then JDC Miller Porsche with Mike Rockenfeller. Mentioned he's going to be in the 42 car this weekend. Rounds out the top five. All 8 cars were on the lead lap. All the 8 GTP cars. Ben Keating and Chatin wins the LMP2 for PR1 Matheson over the TDS Racing teammates. In LMP3, Gar Robinson wins in his number 74 Riley over Barbosa, and then Matt Bell Fidani in the AWA. The GTD Pro win goes to Ross Gunn, Alex Riberas Harder Racing, and in GTD, the win goes to Brian Sellers and Madison Snow for Paul Miller Racing in the BMW. The next race for IMSA will be at VIR, which will be a GT only event there. So that'll event detail. So that'll be a GT only deal. They'll also have the GTD. Then you have the GSTCR for Michelin Pilot Challenge. They don't have any. They haven't listed anything for those other ones. VP Racing Sports Car Challenge and the Lamborghini Super Trofeo and the MX5 Cup. So we'll see what happens with the listings and all for who's going to show up for that race. Rally Finland was basically over before it started. Elfyn Evans dominated while his teammate Kalle Rovanperä crashed out early, but was running really well in his quest to win his home rally. But it's only, though they say it's his third retirement and 41 starts in WRC, which is crazy to think for as young of a driver as he is. But he's going to win his home rally one of these years for sure. Evans cuts the lead to 25 points, but I still don't think that it's going to matter. IQ race as team first to allow the ladder. Yeah, so yeah, Jari-Matti Latvala ended up racing this past weekend in the Rally Finland. First time he has raced in the Rally 1 cars. First time he's raced in a few years, so credit to him on that. And then, so total this year in 3 stage runs, finishing second. Yeah, and Terry Neuville finished second there at Rally Finland, only 39.1 seconds behind the winner. Takamoto Katsuda was third over Timo Sunonen by less than 5 seconds. So there, Jari-Matti Latvala finished fifth. And then Oliver Solberg was the winner of the Rally 2 category. So credit to him on that. Go through that, get through, and then go and see it there. So Indy next at Nashville was Christian Rasmussen getting another victory there in Hunter McElroy and Jacob Abel rounding out the podium. And that was early. It was a morning race there. They'll be running, there's a one day show for them at Indy Road Course this coming week. So they'll be doing everything on Friday. So that'll be a condensed deal for them. Rasmussen gains points on all of his rivals. McElroy, Abel, Nolan Siegel finished fifth. Louis Foster finished sixth. And credit to Jamie Chadwick getting a top 10 finish in this event. Ernie Francis was running well, and he ended up having a crash in turn 4 to knock himself out of the deal. Jagger Jones had a mechanical issue. Trying to look through here, anybody else who stands out. So that's those were the results there. You had Yuvin Sundaramurthy, the Indian driver born here in the U.S., makes his debut, finishes 11th. So credit to him. And yeah, so we'll see. Matt Brabham was in the race there for Junkos Hollander this past weekend. He'll be back this weekend as well for the race at IMS. The drivers, we'll get in that. So Christian Rasmussen, 45-point lead on Nolan Siegel, and 650 or 40, yeah. And then McElroy third, Jacob Abel fourth, Louis Foster fifth. Abel and McElroy only separated by 2 points. Louis Foster a little bit further behind there in fifth. Reese Gold in sixth with James Rode, Daniel Frost, Kiffin Simpson, and Ernie Francis Jr. rounding out the top 10. Jamie Chadwick 14th in points, 21 points behind Ernie Francis there. So we'll see what goes on at IMS Road Course for those guys. Season quickly coming to an end there. In terms of the NHRA, last time they'll be racing, it's been plenty of instances, it seems like, recently of last race at Denver. Now it'll be the last time they'll race at Heartland Park, Topeka. It's unfortunate to see that, which, I mean, all these drag strips are being closed, and it's unfortunate for sure. But one of the great drag strips, it's where Jim Epler ran the first 300-mile-an-hour run in a funny car in the Rug Doctor Oldsmobile. So that was a cool deal that took place back in 1993. The points battle, we're getting close to the end of the regular season. After this race at Brainerd, you have 10 days or whatever. It's only 10 days after that is the start of the U.S. Nationals, the Big Go, the last race of the regular season. So, big deal. A lot of the special events also take place there. So, crunch time for the NHRA there. All the 4 main pro categories will be at Brainerd. Or no, not Brainerd. I'm sorry. So they're going to run 2 races in a row. So they'll be running at Heartland Park Top Fuel, Funny Car, and Pro Stock, no bikes. Top Alcohol, Dragster, Funny Car, or Top Alcohol, Funny Car will be there. Super Stock, Mountain Motor, Pro Stock will also be at Topeka. So that'll be good to see. And then they'll be racing at Brainerd the following week. So busy times to try to get in. And Tony won the regional, as I mentioned, and leads the national point standings in Top Alcohol, Dragster, and in his, I think, Region 7 or whatever, in Top Alcohol Dragster, trying to win a drag racing championship to add on to all the other championships he's won in his illustrious career. All right, so yeah, we'll move on to football here before we get into some previews for the racing coming up this weekend. I mean, right now, at least for our teams, I know for the 49ers, knock on wood, things have been going all right. No Nick Bosa, but he's the number 4 player in the top player, whatever, in the top 100, and 8 players, so the most players represented in the top 100 for any team, so that's cool. It looks like things are kind of coming together, getting ready for first preseason game coming up this weekend, and then so that'll be they'll be playing on Sunday afternoon against the Raiders in Las Vegas. So they'll be the last game of the week there. So that we'll see how that goes. The first game, I don't know who's going to be playing, who isn't. We're in a lot of areas. I know that Brock Purdy is not going to play. It's going to be a lot of Trey Lance and a lot of Sam Darnold. And so those guys battling for that backup role. And then there's other battles on defense and tight ends trying to get on the roster. People are trying to go and get on the practice squad and the like. So we'll see, trying to keep people upright, functional to get to the regular season, and which will be a difficult road to try to get back to another championship game, to get to Las Vegas. They get to start the season in Las Vegas here in the preseason, and hopefully in February they're back in Las Vegas playing the Super Bowl. That's at least my hope. Josh, your Jaguars have been good. I think all returns have been solid for you guys. Calvin Ridley hasn't really lost a step, it seems, so it's a great thing for Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence ended up making, I mean, I know you weren't happy with the ranking, but I figure he'll have a much more improved ranking because he has more weapons at his disposal this coming year.
Yeah, I mean, he's got a lot of weapons at his disposal. I think you're seeing what Calvin really is going to be able to do. I've seen some of the highlights, from training camp so far, and looks like it's going to really open up the offense. So yeah, I would expect the Jaguars, offense to probably be one of the top offenses in the entire NFL. So it should be exciting. Looking forward to seeing how Calvin Ridley performs. I think he can go over. I mean, we get into fantasy a little bit. I think he can go over 1,000 yards. I think he can at least get 10 touchdowns. I think he, clearly looks like, he's exactly as advertised. So it's going to help Trevor Lawrence have another deep target, somebody that can, take away from other guys like Christian Kirk and Zay Jones. I think they'll do pretty good as well with, defenses having to focus on Ridley, and also factor in Evan Ingram, factor in Travis Etienne, also, having more support in the backfield as well. So should be interesting to see how that plays out on offense. So I think definitely they'll be pretty good, and looks like from training camp it's been pretty smooth so far. They did have a little bit of hiccup with Tyson Campbell, I think, having a concussion. I think Calvin Ridley, I think on a play he was landing on the ground, and I think inadvertently Calvin Ridley's foot hit the back of Campbell's helmet or something like that, so out with a concussion right now. So that's the only major hiccup. So don't expect that to really affect anything, though. I'm sure he'll come back soon and be able to, come back and probably start on the first game of the season against Indy on the road. So definitely looking forward to that. Defensively, I think it's going to be all about the pass rush and seeing how well they do. Josh Allen, Trayvon Walker, can they improve? There's questionable depth as well behind them. They'd re-signed Dwayne Smoot on a deal, but he's coming off of an Achilles, so we'll see if he's able to recover from that. But really disappointed they didn't go after another pass rusher after they Arden Key leaving in free agency to go to the Titans for some reason. I think they should have gotten Yannick Ngakoue, ended up signing on another deal for $10 million, I think, so with another team. So I think they should have gone after him. Plenty of other veteran pass rushers, but hopefully Dwayne Smoot's not the only veteran pass rusher that they decide to take on. I think it's going to help on defense with pressure. That's something that they struggled with through times last year. So you're really hoping that they get help there. So we'll see how that goes. Offensive line. We'll see how the offensive line goes, but I think should be enough to help Trevor Lawrence. Walker Little, Cam Robinson fight in training camp, I guess. Robinson is going to be suspended for a bit for PEDs, so it's going to be on Walker Little to try to show that he can be the future. Because I don't think they're going to keep Cam Robinson after this year because he's getting to be too expensive and everything. So we'll see how it goes. Of course, first round pick Anton Harrison probably be the right tackle. So we'll see if he's able to stay there, if he ends up switching over to left tackle or something like that. So be interesting to see there. And bit of questionable on the left guard side. Ben Barch coming back from injury. Tyler Shatley, longtime backup, now sometimes starter, having some heart rhythm issues, so obviously going to be out for a bit for that. So we'll see how the left guard, make sure your left guard depth there. So we'll see how they address that issue and if that ends up being an issue during preseason. So looking forward to seeing how they do against the Cowboys. Starters will be in for I think 1 or 2 series, so don't expect them being too long, but we'll see if it looks like they have chemistry on both sides of the ball, and we'll see how the rest of the depth goes. But looking forward to getting back to football here pretty soon and getting ready to start the regular season here in a few weeks.
Yeah, next week we're going to preview the Fall Ball League because the draft will be coming up. The draft will be coming up that following Sunday. The week after, we'll talk about what happened in the draft because I won't be around on the 29th because I will be on a boat in the Bahamas. So we'll have a little bit of time in between there. I don't know, maybe you can go and get because that'll be Daytona, I think. So if you get Joe, you guys could probably go and do the show or whatever. We'll talk about that. But yeah, football is definitely coming up soon because now I'm getting, I don't know how many freaking emails a day, football wise. So if you're not a fan of it, you better go and close your eyes because there's going to be plenty. But if you are, like I am, it's kind of a lot, and you're just trying to take it all in. So that's really where I am, and I'm hoping to see. I mean, it's a great combination when your team, like for both of us, our teams have hope. That's not been the case at times for the last decade or two. So both our actual teams have hope, and then the fantasy team, of course, new season, redraft, so you never know what can come from that. Let's move forward to the picks here for this weekend. The IndyCar Gallagher Grand Prix at Indianapolis, the second IMS road course race of the season. Just as result there, I'm trying to go and see if they bring out. Yeah, they don't have any of that. No, of course, yeah. Palou won earlier this year. Herta and Rossi won the races for Andretti in 22. Rinus VeeKay won in 21, along with Will Power, Scott Dixon, and Scott Dixon won the summer race, and the Penske duo of Joseph Newgarden and Will Power took the wins in the early event there. Simon Pagenaud won in 2019. Power and Pagenaud were the guys that dominated through 2019 or 20. Then Joseph Newgarden was the first person not named Power or Pagenaud to win. Since 21, we've had a little bit more diversity in the winners. Entry list is the usual suspects. Sands, of course, Simon Pagenaud. There's going to be news about Alio, which probably is he's only going to either run ovals or he's only going to run Indy, probably, which will open up a seat for, who knows, whether it's Tom Blomqvist. More than likely he's going to take over one of the seats. And with Linus Lundqvist making a second consecutive start, I would venture to say that if he isn't getting calls from the likes of Chip Ganassi or Michael Andretti or Ray Hall, that he's probably a likely fit as well. So figure those news stories are going to come along. Of course, they're waiting on the moves with Alex Palou and Marcus Ericsson first before all these other dominoes kind of start dropping there. I'm gonna go, and I'm not sure who went first the last time, but I'm trying to figure out what the results have been at IMS over the years. Indianapolis GP, yeah. So NTT, IndyCar Series, zero active drivers. So I don't know if do you have anybody that you want to pick as a favorite, or you have your guys, or Josh?
I mean, it's hard to go against Alex Palou, especially, at Indianapolis this year. He's been pretty good on the road courses overall, and the only hiccups have been on strategy, and he's still been pretty strong overall. So it's hard to go against him here at the IMS road course. Wild card, I'm gonna go with Linus Lundqvist. Why not? He's gonna have another drive in the 60 car, and want to see how he does on a road course. He has a street oval experience now, and I know the 60 isn't the best, but he seemed like he was doing a good job otherwise until exiting early out of Nashville. So I want to see how he can do on road course. So I'll pick him as my wild card this week.
Yeah, solid pick. Makes a lot of sense there. If they have pace like they had last week, it's not out of the realm. He's done well there in the road Indy, so not like, and he has, being the fact he has experience there, it fits. It gives him more of a chance. I'm gonna go. I was thinking going one way, but I'm actually gonna go with Christian Lundgaard. Not because they've been like all really amazing on road courses in general, but they've shown pace here in the last few races. Ray Hall, Letterman, Lanigan. Of course, on the street courses, they were nowhere, and then he won Toronto. Graham Rahal qualified on the front row at Mid-Ohio. And so, I mean, there are signs, and as I mentioned earlier, Lundgaard has had a great runs there. He qualified on pole. I think earlier this year he qualified on pole. He's had 2 top 5s and 3 top 10s on this track in his limited starts there. So I'm gonna go with Christian Lundgaard to win. Let me just put that in there. Christian Lundgaard to win. And then my wild card pick, this stupid thing, racing reference is so bad. Point standings. So there we have 27 guys that were running the whole year, but now he hasn't. So it kind of narrows that down. I'll go with Callum Ilott. Why not? They've kind of fallen off recently, the Junkos Hollander, but team Ilott wild card. But I mean, it's a place where now he's had multiple reps there. They have good data. It could be an opportunity for them to make up some points. They're in a tight battle with VK, Graham Rehal. They're only a few points separating those three guys. So, and then also looking at trying to keep the leader circle situation. You're trying to make sure that you get in the top 24, which I think right now that the 24th car would be the Meyer-Shank 60 car. So, or thereabouts, and then Agustin Canapino, they're all trying to go and make that happen as well. All right. And so we'll start with trucks. Shane Van Gisbergen's going to make his pavement oval debut at IRP in a truck, the T-Sport 200, 39 trucks for 36 spots. I'm not sure points-wise how that will work out, but Shane Van Gisbergen, I assume, would have points if it becomes an issue if there's any type of weather. You have William Sawalich in the 1, Landon Lewis making another start in the 04 for Roper, Lane Riggs driving for Spire. Let's see, Greg Van Alst will be running the 20 for Young's Motorsports, Logan Bearden for AM Racing in the 22, Chris Hacker in the 30 for On Point, and I mentioned SVG. Chad Chastain will be in the 44, Jack Wood in the 51, Tyler Hill running the family 56 truck. They don't have anybody listed on the 61. Connor Jones running for Thorsport, Armani Williams running the G2G Rent-A-Wreck. First race of the playoff too, so that's another thing. So reset driver points just to go over that. Corey Heim starts with an 8-point lead over Zane Smith and a 9-point lead on Carson Hocevar. And he's got Eckes is fourth, minus 11, Grant Enfinger minus 13, Ty Majeski minus 16. Ben Rhodes, Nick Sanchez round out the 8. They'll only eliminate 2 to start. I think they eliminate 2 in each round. So right now, D. Benedetto and Matt Crafton are minus 28, 3 points out of the cut line with the least amount of bonus points going in there. I'll start with the race itself for this week. In terms of a winner, it kind of has a similar feel to what happened last year, where Ty Majeski and Grant Enfinger, both of those guys kind of started going on a run during the playoff. Grant Enfinger won this race last year. But I'm going to go with Ty Majeski. Majeski's been close here recently. He's been the most consistent driver that hasn't won a race. I think it's time for him in Thorsport, and essentially a owner-sponsored race, to go and get that victory, lock himself in to the round of 6. I think that would be a good deal for him. He's been winning plenty in his super, so I think it would be time for him to win in a truck. My wild card pick for this race, I'm going to go with Lane Riggs, because every time he's been in a truck, he's shown really good pace, and I think he's been close, considering, and the Spire trucks have been shown up with Bono Mannion with a lot of pace when they've been able to make the show. So I think those are the picks I would have for trucks at IRP. Then, so I said Ty Majeski to win, Lane Riggs wild card, and so I'd put my name there. And then, in terms of who I think will make the Final Four, honestly, I have a hard time believing that those top 3 guys. I don't think Hocevar is feeling really good right now. It's the best that Nice has looked since Chastain tried to make that Hail Mary run with them a few years ago. Zane Smith, as much as there's been issues some inconsistencies. Zane Smith is one of the better drivers in this series, period. They want him, I'm sure, with the way things have been going in Cup and in Xfinity, I think they want him to have a chance to go and get another title. And Corey Heim, even missing a race, still won the regular season title. So he's been really consistent. The next big thing for Toyota, which doesn't usually count for a lot because they don't have enough vehicles. I think those three guys are going to make the Final Four at Phoenix. The fourth person that is going to make the Final Four, I believe, will be, and I guess it fits. I wanted to go Sanchez, but I'm going to go with Majeski because the way the playoffs work or the kind of tracks they have, it suits Ty Majeski and Ty Majeski's driving style to go and make the round, to make that final round. He's shown well on 1.5 mile tracks. He's a freaking short track master. So I think that's who's going to make it. He was most consistent driver that hadn't won a race this year. So it's a good time to go and do that. Josh, who are you picking for this week and at IRP, and then who is your Final Four prediction?
I think IRP this weekend. I'm going to go with Corey Heim, start out the playoffs, get a win, set the tone for how the playoffs are going to go. And my wild card, I'm going to go with the guy making his oval debut, Shane Van Gisbergen. I want to see how he does on the oval. I think he might have a good chance in a good car with Nice, but I think, I'm interested to see how his opportunity in this goes, and might be an indicator of how he does in Cup if he decides to come here full time. But so we'll see. My Final Four, I think I'm gonna go with Corey Heim, Zane Smith, Carson Hocevar. I think that's pretty easy. I think those are the guys, top three right now. And then my fourth guy, I'm going to go with Grant Enfinger. He's quietly been doing well this year, only in 5th place in the standings, but he actually has a fairly solid statistical record this year. So 9.4 average start and finish. So very, very consistent, and I think he's a little bit more consistent than some of the guys in the current top 4 right now. So I'll go with him as my guy in the 4th spot. So exciting to see how the Truck Series will play out, this playoffs, and I want to see if these young guys and maybe a couple of veterans here can go mix it up and see who wins the title in Phoenix.
Yeah, definitely. And this first round of the playoffs, they're going to run IRP on Friday, this coming Friday. Then they'll take a couple weeks off, 16 days before they end up racing at the Milwaukee Mile. I think that's the day after the Daytona finale, the regular season finale, if weather holds off. And then they'll have another off week, and they'll run at Kansas to end the first round. Then they'll have a short break. They'll race 6 days later at Bristol to start the second round, have an off week, go to Talladega, have 2 more off weeks, go to Homestead, another off week, and go to Phoenix. So very stop-start playoff situation outside of the back-to-back races at Kansas and Bristol here in the middle of the playoff, essentially. So you're going to lose track of the trucks because, frankly, that's just how they schedule them for whatever reason. I don't know why they insist on having to finish it at Phoenix. I don't know why they insist on starting at Daytona and then have in Vegas, and then before they actually start really racing. They don't have to do that, but that's NASCAR for you. We'll move on to the Xfinity Series, the Pennzoil 150 at the IMS road course. Yeah, Catherine, like I mentioned, isn't going to be in the race. They said I read not Camden Murphy. I forget who they said on Twitter, but whatever, who cares? Yeah, Perkins is a different sponsor. Weatherman, trying to see here. AJ Allmendinger will be in the 10. Keebler Gibbs will be in the 19. Connor Mozak will be in the 24. I forget what's that guy. They said that will be in the 34. The same guy who showed up for Chicago. Camden Murphy. He's in the 08. And then what's it called? The guy that showed whatever that. Who knows if they're even going to make the race. LeBay will be driving for Emerlin Gase this weekend. Balicki in the 36 for DGM. Connor Daly will be in the Alpha Prime 44. Sage Karam will be in the Alpha Prime 45. Preston Pardis trying to make the show with his family team. 53. Didn't have anybody listed on the entry list as of yet. Will Rogers will be in the 66 for Carl Long. Miguel Paludo making another start for JRM in the 88. Ross Chastain will be in the 91 for DGM with Skip Barber Racing School on the side. So 3 Cup regulars in the show for this weekend. Couple other guys who are not getting points for the Xfinity Series. Based on the picks, Josh, get first dibs at this.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm going to go with AJ Allmendinger. This is a track that he's been really good at. Of course, won in the Cup Series. They ran here for the first time in 2021. So go with AJ winning the race here, and then I'm going to go with Sage Karam again with my wild card pick. Of course, when they ran at Road America, had a shot coming with Tudico to win the race and was up there. So I think Sage, is really starting to figure out these stock cars in the Xfinity Series. So, I think he has a good chance here this weekend to be a competitive entry here on the road course.
Yeah, you would assume with the extra added data with Connor Daly as well being there, Connor and Sage knowing each other very well, I think that should help the team. They haven't had as much pace this year, but I think it's an opportunity. Karam coming off of racing for the Sam Hunt team and showing his prowess at Road America, as you said, Josh, and then jumping into Carl Long's car last week and being able to get it in the show and running the whole race is picking up experience as he goes along here. So definitely good thing to see. For me, I'm going to pick Keebler Gibbs to win because he's shown over time he's pretty solid on road courses in an Xfinity car. Is going to use that experience there as well. Probably going to qualify well, I would think. Otherwise, for the wild card, I'm going to go with. I can't even use that as a wild card. I'm going to go with. You know what? I'll go with Preston Pardis. If they can, it is a wild card because he has to make the show on time. If it's wet, I'm sure he'll have a better chance anyway, but he needs to make the show on time, and they are a very small outfit, but Preston Pardis is a really solid racer. Knows his way around a road course with the MX5 Cup, so he's definitely somebody that if he can get in the show and they get a decent pit crew, I think he could compete for top 15 finish at least on Saturday at the IMS road course. Okay, so let's move lastly to the Verizon 200 at the Brickyard. More than likely the last time they'll be racing on the road course at IMS for Cup, I hope. There are 39 cars, and nobody's going to DNQ. Chastain with Worldwide Express, Cindric Discount Tire. Harvick will be running a throwback to Tony's last race at Indianapolis Mobile One scheme this weekend. Brad Keselowski runs Socios, Gainbridge for the 7, and LaJoy 3 Chi for Kyle Busch. The great Ford sponsorship on Eric Almirola, if you needed to wonder what he drives. Yahoo will be on Hamlin, Menards and Atlas for Blaney, highpoint.com for Chase Briscoe. Jensen Button will also be running a Mobile One car. Castrol Edge will be back on Buescher's car this weekend, along with for auto owners insurance for Martin Truex. PSC Industries, Johns Manville, and Ream will be on Christopher Bell's. Dex Imaging, the printer mobile for taking Scott McLaughlin's verbiage, or printer machine. Bubba Wallace, Money Lion, Raptor Tough for William Byron, Leaf Filter for Justin Haley, Horizon Hobby for Michael McDowell, Generator Skills for Todd Gilliland, Purdue University for Ryan Preece, Sirius XM Radio for Tyler Reddick. Oh, they're actually running Frosted Flakes this weekend on O. Richard's car. So that's a missed opportunity. They could have run Terry Labonte's old Frosted Flakes scheme. Camping World and Andy Lally will be on the 51. Monster Energy will be on the 54 for Keebler. Kamui Kobayashi will have Eric Phillips as his crew chief this weekend. Toyota Genuine Parts. Ty Dillon will have Raise T. Josh Balicki, as his usual, Ziegler Auto Group on the Live Fast 78. SVG will have Enhance Health again on his 91. Darian Grubb will be his crew chief again. Freeway.com for Suarez. Brody Kostecki will be in the 33 car, as listed or mentioned a few weeks ago. All right, so for me, definitely going to bring up the fact that you have, like we brought it up earlier, you have SVG trying to go 2 for 2 in a Cup car. You have Brody Kostecki, who's competing against him in the supercars for the championship this year in an RCR car. And RCR has shown with this next gen that they've been really good on the road courses. And when Kyle Busch isn't hitting the fence, he's pretty fast. You have Kamui Kobayashi making his stock car debut and driving for 2311, which their equipment is pretty solid. Toyotas have been hit or miss depending. Truex did win at Snoroma, and they've had various results, so you never know. But it's a very short amount of practice, so asking a guy who's basically spent his whole entire career in single seaters to jump in a Cup car and learn it in 20 minutes outside of sims is asking a lot, but we'll see. Trying to go through here. I mean, Lally has had a lot of experience in Cup, so we'll see what happens with him. And Jensen Button, various deals there. He was running well at Chicago, and he got moved by he got run over by Christopher Buescher, and that ruined his run. Who knows what he can do on a permanent road course. What is it? When he ran at Coda, he got destroyed, so we'll see. They've moved the restart zone back towards that final S curve or whatever before they enter the front straightaway. I would have been like, they should just do the restarts in IndyCar turn 1 and go opposite. I don't think it really affects anything that much if they just decided to take the restarts in the middle of the corner there. It would have been cleaner. But, that's just me. I'm not supposed to know anything, of course. But I'm gonna go and pick. You know what? I'll do that this way then. So I'm gonna go with AJ Allmendinger to get the win because he needs the win to guarantee a playoff spot. He could point his way in, but it is AJ. You never know with him. He could fry himself out, or he could go out there and set the world ablaze and win another time at Indianapolis. And that would be a second win in a Cup car there, and he would lock himself into the playoffs. And my wild card, not SVG, even though it's probably the one everybody's going to go with. I'm going to go with Brody Kostecki because the guy does have stock car experience. He ran in the K&N West Series, few years ago. He's somebody who has spent a lot of time here in the States racing, so he's not completely unfamiliar. Add the fact that this car, considering what SVG did, I would venture to say that Brody Kostecki has a lot of similarities with the sim game with SVG and having a lot of experience in that, driving different types of vehicles. I think it's the perfect storm for Brody to go out there and put on a good show, as long as he doesn't get completely destroyed on restarts. So I think those will be my choices there. Josh, you get the close on the picks here at IMS Road Course for this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, I think, well, I'm going to go with SVG this weekend to win. I think, he's got a really strong car based on, how he did at Chicago, but, I think it's a chance for him to, prove that, he belongs in the Cup Series, and I think, he's got a real good shot to win this weekend. I think 91 will be fast. It'll be a little bit tougher, I think, because they've been to Indianapolis before, and I don't think there will be really any weather issues here this weekend. So it'll be a little bit tougher there. I think he had that advantage of knowing street course technique and knowing how to race in the rain versus the Cup cars and the intricacies of that, but I still believe he's going to be really good this weekend, so I'm gonna go with him. Wild card, well, I'm gonna go with the other ringer here, and that we haven't talked about really, but I'll go with Kamui Kobayashi. Seemed like in testing he's been really good, and I think 2311. They Tyler Reddick was good, and Coda. And I mean, he's probably a good pick too, but someone who's really, really, known for being good at road racing, Kamui Kobayashi, go with him as a wild card this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely, I think after we somehow or another did not we referenced that SVG was in the race and then completely missed, and then the bastard went and destroyed everybody. No offense to him, but he absolutely whooped them. We made sure to go over all the ringers this week, even the ones that probably aren't going to really feature. But yeah, I mean, if Kamui, I would be Ashi wild card. That would be the one that would be the biggest surprise because of his relative lack of experience in a door car. Basically, he's been in open wheels. He's been in prototypes for so many years, Formula One, and now in World Endurance Championship. I'm not sure if he ran Super GT offhand, but that would be the closest, and that's definitely nowhere like driving a Cup car. So curious to see what he does. It's going to be cool to see. Having more international drivers, having some level of diversity is a good thing. Alrighty then. So Josh, you had a week away, so let us know what's going on in the world of iRacing and what your plans are for this coming weekend in terms of the sim segment.
Yeah, I mean, of course, getting back into it, of course, after a week away on iRacing or from iRacing, but of course, you got the Cup stuff and XFinity stuff this week at IMS on the road course. So definitely try to get at least one in on both of those. I definitely like the Indy road course and definitely enjoy running around there especially on the Cup car. I think it's definitely handles really good. The Xfinity one will be a little bit more tougher since it drives more like a stock car than the Cup car actually does on road course. So that should be fun. Talladega for the 87 car, which that should be also pretty fun. Of course, I think I'll try to get on that one at least one time. On the road course, actual road car side, we've got Touring Car Challenge at Okayama International Circuit, Formula Fords at Summit Point, Formula IR at Road America, Michelin Pilot Challenge at Virginia International Raceway, Global MX5s at Rudskogen Motor Center, so that should be interesting. Formula V at Summit Point as well. So yeah, definitely a lot of opportunities for road racing as well. Also, iRacing is a special event series that they're doing for the some cars that have been around as long as the service for their 15th anniversary. So this week we've got on the road side the 15th anniversary Pontiac Solstice Challenge on the Tsukuba circuit. So one of the more entry level cars. I think it's slower than the MX-5, so definitely a little bit low on power, but it's one of their 15th anniversary series that they're doing. And then on the other end, they have the 15th anniversary Legends Ford Coupe racing on Oxford Plains short track. So Legends car is also one of the entry level series on iRacing that have been around for a long time, as long as the service has been around. So of course, iRacing celebrating its 15th anniversary now, having been on for since 2008. So glad I've been able to play it for a while now. So of course, great service, of course, and being able to do a whole bunch of things like winning the Indy 500 and being able to do all sorts of sim racing events on there. So of course, glad to be be able to participate on that. Also downloaded a kart racing game called Kart Racing Pro, which I've had the demo for many years, but have never bothered to pay the full $40 for it. But I've trying to get more into karting and trying to. From what I've read, this game is probably the most accurate in terms of kart physics, and so it had a lot of selection for different levels of engine power, with going from electric to junior karts to basically pro level karts, similar to what I went out and did at Bushnell a couple weeks ago. So I want to try to get more practice and try to get improve where I can, especially under braking. So try to run some on that. Although I did find out that R Factor 2 has a kart sim expansion pack as well, and then I found out that somebody recreated the Orlando Kart Center, so I might have to get that one too, especially Orlando's nearby. So and definitely try to improve there. With my off time, so actually be able to run. It'll be like how the Cup guys or whatever train on iRacing or whatever and race on there and then go race it in real life. And now it's like, well, might have this game that I can actually go race the track in real life in karts. So that might be interesting. So I might have to explore that opportunity as well. And then I guess there's a movie coming out this weekend, Gran Turismo. That's coming out this weekend, I think. So I haven't seen like the reviews yet on if people actually think it's going to be a good movie, but I've seen the trailer, and obviously we've all probably played Gran Turismo, and it's probably based on their real life competitions that they do. So that should be interesting how they adapt a video game like that to the movies. So probably we'll try to go see that one this weekend. If possible. So, glad to be back on home after being on vacation and everything, and glad to be able to get back into iRacing. So, hopefully have some time to be able to do that this weekend throughout the whole time. So, thanks to Joe for co-hosting last week for me, so glad able to do that, and thanks for being a great friend to us as well. So thanks for that. And then of course follow me on Twitter, JP Huffline, and Twitch TV/USailor2, and go on there and watch all my streams. Maybe I might try to stream something this weekend. We'll see. See how it goes. Of course, follow our YouTube channel at Buescher Podcast, and go on there and see all our views and everything, and see all our videos that we posted from last year up until now. So go on there and like, comment, and subscribe if you wish. And yeah, I think that's it, of course. And of course, thanks Phil, being able to host and everything, and being able to continue on without me last week, of course. But always glad to be able to get back on and be able to do that. So yeah, that's it for me this week, and hopefully we have a exciting weekend of racing with basically triple header at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway between IndyCar and NASCAR.
Yeah, I hope so too. It's a good weekend. Probably last time they'll do it in this format, but it might lead to XFinity going back to IRP and putting it back the way it was, which worked for over 2.5 decades or whatever it was. For me, you can find me at PGMatthew28 on Twitter, X, whatever the hell you want to call it. You can find us at Gripstrip Pod on here. If you listen to podcast, wherever you listen to podcasts, you can find the Gripstrip Podcast. You can be on, you can find it on my blog site, philipgmatthew.com. Or else Apple and Podbean, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, the YouTube page where we have the video feeds. I'll be coming back this week with Josh being back. And it's good to have the regular crew back, having your perspective on all different areas of motorsport. Want to make sure we keep the show going, but it's always good when we're doing it. It's the way we've done it for the better part of 181 episodes, so we don't really want to change that for sure. We will be back next week for episode 182 of the GSP, talking about all things Indianapolis and the other racing that took place this past weekend for SRX and NHRA. More football talk probably because we're getting close to the draft. The fantasy draft for Fall Brawl, and we will bring it back and see what's going on with that. So for everybody who listens and subscribes, thank you for that. And we'll be back next week for episode 182 of the Gripstrip Podcast. Take care and goodbye.